Welcome to Chapter 1 of Organizational Behavior and Opportunities. I will give you a brief overview of the content in this chapter, but I do encourage you to pick up your textbook, open it, and read through Chapter 1, maybe even highlight, circle, underline, take some notes, whatever is going to improve your understanding of the concepts that I'm about to go over. So by the end of this chapter, you should know the definition of organizational behavior, the 4 action steps for responding positively in times of change, the important system components of an organization, the formal and informal elements of an organization, the diversity of organizations in the economy, the opportunities that change creates for organizational behavior, the value of objective knowledge, skill development, and the study of organizational behavior and the process of organizational design thinking. Once you know those 8 components, you will be in a good place and you will know what you need to know for this particular chapter. Let's jump in. So what is organizational behavior? So organizational behavior is the study of 3 distinct components: individual behavior, group processes, and structural dimensions. And you can see it's not only the psychosocial behavior of people in an organization, it is also the group processes that are in place, as well as the structure of the job itself. It is really a multifaceted study of numerous different fields that include economics, anthropology, management, medicine, psychology, and sociology. The textbooks goes into a lot more depth in these areas, but just know that the study of organizational behavior is very broad and includes a number of different components. Behavior in the time of change. When confronted with change, people often become rigid and reactive rather than open and responsive. Big changes disrupt people's lives and their habits, and it forces them to learn new skills. And we have lived through this over the last year dealing with COVID, right? We've dealt with a complete disruption of our lives, and we've had to learn new skills in order to cope. The same thing happens in organizations. And when this happens, people who often do well are people who have a positive attitude, they ask questions, they listen for answers, and they're committed to success, even if that means changing and growing. So organizations are open systems with lots of things that influence them. So today the corporation is a dominant organization in the form of the Western world. That's what most organizations are. But other organizations often are often present in our society. Religious ones, military ones are often also families or organizations, charities or organizations. So there's a lot of different structures, and there's not one particular one that applies to everything. So organizations, like I said, are open systems of interacting components. There's people, there's tasks, there's technology, and there's structure. As you can see in this diagram, I know it is small, but it does have these various components interacting with each other. And in addition to these major components, the organization also has the external environment, things like suppliers or customers or government regulations that also influence the organization. So it is an organization, as I've said before, is multifaceted. It has a number of variables and components that influence people's behavior within that organization. So formal and informal elements of an organization. So formal elements are things that are heavily, structured and dictated. They're official. Things like job descriptions and products and goals and policies, those are all overt, meaning that they're very obvious. They're written down in a policy manual somewhere, and you're supposed to, when you start your job, start in chapter one and open it up and learn those policies and procedures within your department and within the organization and the goals of what the organization is supposed to achieve. And a lot of organizations have these posted on the wall and across the lobby when you walk in. It's very obvious what they're trying to do and achieve. The informal elements are covert, meaning that they're a little bit harder to detect. You have to really be there for a while to learn how these things influence organizational behavior. People's attitudes that they have in that organization, the culture of the organization, norms that have been established within the organization, and morale. How are people, how do they feel about working there? Are they excited? Do they look forward to going to work every day? Those things will definitely influence people's behavior within the organization and the behavior of the organization itself. So there's hundreds and hundreds of small, medium, and large organizations that are present here in Canada. And there's different sectors in which these organizations take place. So the public sector is also known as the government sector, and they provide goods and services for the citizens of Canada. Um, Things like the military, police, public transit, public education, healthcare, infrastructure, the roads, the sewers, all of that stuff is government work or the government sector. The private sector plays an important role in the economy too, and the private sector is comprised of all the organizations that are not under government control, right? Manufacturing, things like steel, the production of automobiles, electronics, and the service sector is also that, which includes things like transportation, financial services, insurance, retail. All of those are considered the private sector. And then the third sector is the voluntary sector, or in other words, the nonprofit sector. And it's important and should not be underestimated because the nonprofit or charity sector does a lot to meet the needs of Canadians that may not be addressed through the government or businesses. In the nonprofit sector, it accounts for about 10% of our overall economy. So there's a big chunk of people that are working in nonprofit organizations. Change creates opportunities and risks for all organizations, and global competition is really a force to be reckoned with. The drive to move or stay ahead of competition creates performance and cost pressures on the people who work in organizations. So globalization is nothing new. We live in a global economy. If you're creating a product here in Canada, you're also competing against people who are creating similar products around the world, obviously because things can be imported and exported. So we in North America especially have a lot of competition in the States, and also face stiff competition in Japan and in Europe. So the globalization creates a drive for quality improvement. And there's a term called total quality improvement. And what that really is you're trying to exceed the demands and expectations of customers for high quality. And the quality has the potential to give an organization a competitive edge against international competition. So total quality management is a structured approach to overall management of quality. And the focus is to improve the quality of the organization's outputs, including all of the goods and services, through continual improvement. And then you can read more about that in the textbook. And then managing organizational behavior. Beyond the challenge of the quality of improvements to meet increasing competition, managing organizational behavior during these changing times is very challenging. You're trying to keep the workforce skill up. You're trying to keep the diversity of the workforce solid. And there's increasing standards. And it's hard to keep morale up when you're always raising the bar on everyone. Okay, learning about organizational behavior is an active process. Like schooling in many other professions, you don't go to school for 2 years or 3 years and then have learned it all and don't do any studying beyond that. So, in the first level, there's really mastery of the basic knowledge of an industry. After that, you develop specific skills or abilities based on that knowledge, and then you have to apply it. And this skill development is really important because every person entering the workforce has to have essential skills now. They have to be able to read and study and write, and they have to be good with oral communication and working with others and continuously learning and thinking and using technology. All of those skills are going to continue to evolve and adapt as our society and our country and the world continue to adapt as well. So, design thinking allows managers to imagine new possibilities by suggesting that we could be and then exploring how to make it different. When faced with a problem, design thinkers will accept the mastery of the problem, take on abstract challenges, and design new solutions rather than rely on past approaches. So, this was a quick overview of chapter one. If you have any questions about any of that material I just covered, do not hesitate to reach out and ask.